Hello everybody, Dr. Julie here. Welcome to this first day of our 3-day type 2 diabetes reversal workshop. I'm excited to have you. This is going to be fun. My name is Dr. Julie Hayek and I'll explain who I am in just a second. But the most important thing is what we're going to be doing over the next 3 days is going to give you the exact framework, the blueprint and the map, the protocols that we've been using for the past 30 years at this point. So with that, the exact protocols that we've been using and helping people to reverse their type 2 diabetes and their pre-diabetes. Let me tell you, there's a lot of people that are out there that don't even know that they have diabetes. So if your doctor or your healthcare practitioner has said to you that type 2 diabetes cannot be fixed and that you cannot reverse type 2, it's time for you to have a pivot. It's time to punt that paradigm, that framework, because it's wrong. You can reverse this thing. You can reverse type 2 diabetes. We do it all day, every day for the last 30 years. So it is fixable, it is solvable, and if you have the correct path, you have the roadmap, you have the blueprint, and I just want to let you know that we can get you through this. So what we want to do is we want to talk a little bit about how type 2 diabetes, it's poorly managed, in my opinion, and the conditions in healthcare, they're just not doing it in a way that people are getting any results. It's just taking a whole bunch of chemical cover-ups. And so it's one of the most poorly managed conditions in all of healthcare, very poorly managed. And why? Well, you go in, they give you some tests, they slap on a label for you, calling you type 2 diabetic, whatever. And then they say, here, take this, right? And then give you a bunch of chemical cover-ups, pills, potions, and whatever it is, right? They're giving you all these things, and what's really happening? What the problem is, they're ignoring the underlying root cause of why it is there and why it developed in that process. So I'm going to explain that today in this video. So we're going to break down the framework over the next 3 days. I'm going to spare you the case study after case study, testimony after testimony. You don't care, and none of that matters. What really matters is that you get the results. So you're here because you have an issue and you're like, Doc, what's the solution? What's the fastest way of getting this thing fixed? That's what I'm going to provide with you today and tomorrow and the next day over the course of 3 days. Again, I'm going quick because I want to make sure that you're getting the things. I know that you're busy, I'm busy, and I want to make sure that I'm getting you the information that you need. And you're more than welcome to rewind these trainings and watch them again and again. So I'm not going to give you fluff, filler, hype, and it's not going to be a 3-day sales pitch. So I'm going to give you actionable tips, tools, and tactics and strategies that you can implement and solve this problem. All right, so let me give you a quick background. My name is Dr. Julie Hayek, and like I said, I've been in practice for over 30 years and really emerged in this functional and lifestyle medicine arena for a long time. And what is it basically? We dig, we find, and we work towards fixing the underlying root cause without a bunch of chemical cover-ups. That's the failed medical approach where you go in with XYZ symptoms and, oh, you've got XYZ symptoms, so take XYZ medication to cover up the symptom. And then you come back in 6 weeks, right? And we know that it's a failed model. You take the medication, it might help temporarily, but what happens? Really overall, what happens? Now you need more medication to cover up the side effects because you feel like trash. And we can do way better. We have fixed the underlying root cause. That's what we have to do, is the underlying root cause. And so what exactly is that about? Well, we're going to talk about this on day 3, cell inflammation. You have to fix things at a cellular level because your cells make up your tissues and your tissues make up your organs. So if your cells are damaged, they're inflamed, they're broken, and the receptors cannot hear, you become insulin resistant, then eventually you build yourself up even more sick. And all that medication in the world, that's not going to fix the broken cells. And I'm going to show you how to fix that over the next few days. So all right, so again, I'm not here to sit and talk about myself or my situation, but again, we're here And we've been in practice for over 30 years, and we've helped thousands of patients reverse their type 2 diabetes. So again, it's reversible, it's solvable, and it's fixable. I ask over the next few days, keep an open mind, because sometimes you have to unlearn some things that you've been taught by previous doctors, especially medical doctors who have one treatment modality. Take this medication and come back in 6 weeks. They spend 5 minutes with you, and then they're on the next one. Here, more drugs. Here, more drugs. Just chemical cover-ups. That's all it is. If I'm driving my car and the check engine light comes on, what do you think I'm going to do? Slap a piece of paper over that light and think, oh, it's going to go away. I'm going to hope it's going to go away. Or do you actually pay a good mechanic that knows how to fix your car and let them look underneath them solve the problem? Let's find the root cause of this thing versus slapping a piece of tape over the check engine light, right? Diabetes, again, is very, very poorly managed. Thyroid is another one of those very poorly managed. ADHD is another one for kids, very poorly managed because, fidgety, bouncy, off the walls, here, take some drugs, and then, all right, let's keep moving forward. This is for people that really want to reverse their type 2 diabetes or their pre-diabetes. This is not for information seekers. This is not for information collectors. So if you're here just to gather a bunch of information, it's not for you. People who are action takers, that's who I'm looking for. Those are the people that need to be here. And our main goal is transformation, not just more information. You have Dr. Google and you have Dr. YouTube at your disposal. You don't need more information. What you need is the right path, the blueprint. But you need to take action upon the information. So we're looking for action takers, not information seekers. So if you're just here taking notes, I'm going to fill up another notebook and I'm not going to do anything with it. There's the stop button. Hit the stop because you're not the right person. You're not the right fit. And I say this politely because, and I say it gently because again, my mission is to transform lives. And if you're not willing to take action upon the principles that we're going to be teaching, I'm wasting your time. I am. I'm wasting your time. And so we've got to make sure that you are sick and tired of being in the situation that you're in and you want to be able to reverse this. So type 2 has a nasty, nasty consequences. And so this is something that if you're hanging on, maybe you got type 2, maybe you've got prediabetes. This is something that has to be addressed. You have to change habits. This is a lifestyle issue. Just because your mom and dad, grandma and grandpa had it, doesn't mean that you have to have it. This is a lifestyle issue that can be reversed if you know the right path. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the CDC website on the information, and I'm going to share with you this information that is just, oh my goodness. It gets worse and worse every single year. Every year that passes by, it gets worse. Did you know that there's 37 million people that have type 2 diabetes? That's 11% of the entire country has full-blown type 2 diabetes. But 28 million, they know they have it. They're fully diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And now here's the scary thing. Look at the pre-diabetes. We have 96 million Americans that have pre-diabetes. That's 38% have full-blown, pre-diabetes. Let's just call it that, right? But they do have pre-diabetes. Here's the scary part. If you go over here and you look at the pre-diabetes, 96 million, that's 1 in 3 people. 1 in 3 people that are pre-diabetic. But watch this now. 80%, right? 80%, they don't even know that they have it. A high risk of developing type 2 and then heart disease, cancer, stroke, and among other things. But 80% of these 96 million people are clueless, which means within 5 years, if they don't get off that roller coaster of standard American diet, and I'm going to show you that in a second. If they don't get off of the roller coaster, they're going to have a full-blown type 2, and with that comes consequences. Your eyes go bad, your kidneys go bad, you have poor circulation, you have neuropathies, you have numbness, tingling, pins, burning needles, burning, sharp, stabbing pain. Life becomes miserable. Each year, more money is spent treating neuropathies than cardiovascular disease. I remember when I saw that, I pulled up the research and found that neuropathy, again, numbness, tingling, pins, needles, and a lot of medication for neuropathy, they have dizziness as a side effect. If I cannot feel my feet and you stick me on medication that makes me dizzy, oh man, that just makes it that much more worse. That might not end well, you know. That might not end well at all, because just some stats for you to be aware of, that you're not alone if you're struggling with diabetes type 2 or prediabetes. You're not alone. It's a big, big percentage. And we're talking millions and millions of people. And so you're in the right spot if you want to get rid of this thing. Fix this and solve it once and for all. I want to talk mostly about today. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about nutrients. Today, the day after, we're going to be talking about cell inflammation and toxins and sugar, hidden sugars and bad fats, different things. But today, I want to talk to you about foods. I want to talk to you about this thing called SAD diet, S-A-D, which is a standard American diet. I want to talk about this thing called SAD diet. And the reason why is because, so this is super important that we understand the SAD diet, the standard American diet, and what it looks like. When I say standard American diet, what do you think of? Hamburgers, spaghetti, lasagna, pizza, sub sandwiches for lunch? Just heavy carbohydrate meals? People think Subway healthy. It's not. All right? What we need to do is we need to stabilize our blood sugar. But what happens? You have Subway sandwich for lunch, maybe a pizza for dinner, and your spaghetti, lasagna, tacos, whatever it is. These heavy carbohydrate meals that spikes your blood sugar. And then it also spikes your insulin. And your insulin, by the way, is your fat storage hormone. So if you're struggling with weight loss resistance, you've got to get off this roller coaster. And by the way, it is the fastest way to disease and dysfunction. Staying on this roller coaster, that's the straight line path to disease, dysfunction. And I'm going to show you the alternative. So anyway, so you have this heavy carbohydrate meal, it spikes your blood sugar, and then you have this insulin surge because you've got to get sugar out of your bloodstream or you'll die. So that's how it works. So insulin comes in, pulls the blood sugar out, and then what happens? You crash. So we see that you have this insulin spike, and then you have this crash, and then you start having these cravings. And by the way, you also have cortisol. So it's like a three-prong, 3 C's. You crash, which means you've just have had your Subway lunch, and then 2 o'clock in the afternoon rolls around, and you're like, oh my gosh, I need something to pull me out of this. I need some more coffee or more caffeine or sugar or something to get me a boost. So then that way it pulls you out of that crash. This dip, right? The dip. And then you also have a cortisol surge. And then this cortisol is basically the hormone that causes stubborn belly fat. So if you have a spare tire or a muffin top, whatever you want to call it, that stubborn belly fat, that's too much cortisol. It's a stress hormone. Too much cortisol, and then you have cravings. So you have cravings because you've crashed. So you might be reaching for more carbs, sugar, caffeine, something to get you out of that crash. So then what happens? You have whatever you have, and then you typically spike again. More blood sugar spikes, more insulin surges. And then what is it? That's what happened, that roller coaster. And it leads to disease and dysfunction. This is the fastest path to destroy your health, and nobody's talking about it. Very few people are actually talking about it. In a couple days, on day 3, we're going to be talking about cellular inflammation. And I already talked about it a little, but you'll never truly get well unless you fix things at a cellular level. Your cells look like They look good when they're not sick. They have these little receptors around it, and nutrients go in, the waste comes out. So good things are going in and bad things are coming out. That's a good cell. That's a cell that's working very well. So we'll talk more about that. So you're essentially screaming at the cell and that it cannot hear because the inflammation is filling up in the cell and the receptors are broken. They don't have very many of them, and that's why it feels like it's deaf and it cannot hear because it's so inflamed. And so it's screaming. It's screaming. It's dysfunction. It's diseased. I'm going to map this out for you on this 3-day as far as cell inflammation, okay? Day 3. Now, we must get our foods right to reduce this inflammation. So type 2 diabetes has a cellular inflammation component, and a lot of diseases have an underlying inflammatory root cause. We have to address the inflammation in the body and what drives that inflammation, all right? So we already talked about some of the stuff like sugar, hidden sugars, carbs, bad fats, toxins, stress, dehydration, nutrient deficiencies, and a lot of things that affect inflammation. However, there's one thing and then one test. This is essentially the pillar number 1 in our protocol. And again, we've been using this for almost 30 years, fixing this thing. And we call it food testing. At a time, we were doing a lot of weight loss, helping a lot of people, and we were able to understand a little more about what's happening to the cells and the food issue, right? That food is actually the thing that feeds the cells. And if you're getting the wrong kind of foods because it's actually causing the cells to have that inflammation, then we see that it's so important. So we also have to understand that the foods and the sensitivities, right? Food allergies, sensitivities, food intolerances, and inflammation. It is next to impossible to lose weight when your body's inflamed and when your cells are damaged because you're hormone resistant, you're insulin resistant, you're leptin resistant. Leptin, that's the hormone that says, hey, I'm full, I'm done eating. Like you eat and eat and eat, and that's the hormone that says, hey, I'm full. But if you're leptin resistant, you keep eating. There's no signal that says, hey, I'm full. So you just keep going. It's a huge problem, a big problem. It's not because of something to ignore. It's not, don't ignore it. So again, we see that sensitivities and tolerances are big, and we're a fan of understanding what it is that you're sensitive to. But I'm not a fan of just, hey, let's follow a sugar-free diet, or let's minimize our carbs. Let's go gluten-free. Pushing things in the right direction a little bit, but we have to food test so we know for sure, because we have to objectively food test to determine what foods are driving that inflammation in the body and what foods are harming the gut. We know that a lot of diseases and dysfunction start in the gut. People's guts are a mess these days. And then we also food test to take the pressure off the immune system. This is not a type 1 diabetes conversation, but we have an autoimmune epidemic, and that very few people are talking about that as well. Lupus, MS, rheumatoid arthritis, celiac, Crohn's, Hashimoto's, those are all autoimmune, right? And so we have to understand that we have to make sure that we're getting the right test done and what to do about it. So if we get food tested, we know what kind of foods that are inflaming those cells. And so when we know it's inflaming the cells, and we understand that there's this stress on the immune system, and eventually it turns on itself and your immune system starts attacking its own tissues. It could be thyroid. It might be your nervous system. It might be MS. It might be lupus. It manifests in different forms and fashions, but this is pillar number 1, you guys. This is the food test. I'm going to show you how to get this testing a couple days from now. I'm going to show you how to get this test done. It's a quick finger prick blood test. You can do it from home. It's kind of like checking your blood sugar, but instead you're checking foods. You're going to determine exactly what foods are wrecking your gut, wrecking your immune system, and driving this inflammation in your body. We have to reduce this chronic, low-grade, systematic total body inflammation. That is step number one. That is pillar number one. If we have to get your food right, we have to take you off this roller coaster of a ride, which is called the American Standard Diet, the standard American diet. Now, what is the alternatives? Well, we've been telling my patients for a long time, lean and greens, nuts, seeds, eggs, and beans. Well, kind of ketogenic framework, but keto, yes and no. Not everyone should be eating a bunch of dairy and a bunch of bacon because you might be sensitive to it. And not only that, but it may not even be good food to feed your cells, especially if you're sensitive. You might be sensitive to avocados and certain proteins and certain meats and dairies and different things. That is why we test. I do like paleo and keto, but they need to be modified. They have to be modified. I don't believe in one size fits all cookie cutter. Everybody gets the same thing. No. No, we can't do that. I don't believe in generic food lists either. Hey, here's type 2 diabetes food list, okay? You might be sensitive to those things. It might be doing more harm than good. We've been doing this. We've been doing weight loss for so many years that I can't even tell you how many people come in that they're doing this keto or they're doing this paleo or they're doing this plant-based or they're sugar-free or they're gluten-free, whatever it is. They can't lose weight. We food test them and they're sensitive to certain foods that are a staple on their diet. We make the modifications, the fat just melts off. It melts off long term. With our weight loss program, we provide long-term sustainable solutions, not just a quick calorie restriction, because who wants that? Here's a generic food list. Who wants that? No, we're all unique and different, and we need to be treated as such. And that is why what we do is so powerful. It's a unique approach, not guesswork. It's test work. That's what we're doing, is test work. We're not going to, hey, take some more medication. No, that's a failed approach. That's a failed model. We have to dig and find and work towards solving the underlying root cause. And your plan is vastly different from the next guy or the next gal. The plan is customized. We have to customize foods and nutrients and different things. And that's why what we do, it works so well. It's not guesswork. It's objective. It's not subjective. It's not system-based. It's let's dig, find, and solve this issue once and for all. So that is what I've got for you today. So again, I told you these exchanges are going to be short. And tomorrow we're going to talk about nutrients. Tomorrow is going to be even shorter, but tomorrow we're going to talk about cravings as well. Because if you crave things, you are craving certain things that often points to nutrient deficiency. And there's a lot of people struggling with nutrient shortages. And I'm going to unpack that tomorrow in day 2. So here's your homework. With every decision you make, you're either going this way or that way. This is just something I want you to think on, ponder on. Maybe nobody's ever told you this, but if you're not drinking enough water, what direction are you going? More towards disease and dysfunction. If you think of a pot of coffee or 2 pots of coffee a day as water, it's not. That's pushing you toward disease and dysfunction. If you're sedentary, if you're sitting a lot, if you're not moving, disease and dysfunction. If you're walking, if you're drinking enough water, hey, now you're pushing things toward a more optimal state of health and vitality. Are you having dessert every night after dinner? That's pushing you toward disease and dysfunction. So salads instead of hamburger. You're going more towards optimal health and vitality. So every decision that you make, whether it's food choices, drinking enough water, minimizing the pop, the sugar, the candy, whatever it might be, moving, exercise, walking, every choice that you make throughout the day, every single choice is pushing you either one way or another. Either it's toward optimal health and vitality or towards disease and dysfunction. So when you make those decisions, whether it's what you are having for dinner or what you're having for lunch, drink most of, every choice that you think about. Is this a habit? Is this a choice pushing you in this direction or that direction? All right, guys. Tomorrow we're going to talk about nutrients and cravings and different things. That's big pillar number 2. We talk about that tomorrow. So all right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.